I'd like to call this regular Planning Commission meeting to order for July 25th, 2013. We'll let the roll call show that all commissioners are present with one seat vacant. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Verplank, please.
You'd all
Ready? Begin. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Verplank. This takes us to the section of the meeting where we open the forum up for the public to speak to us on items which are not on the agenda. I think we have one person who would like to speak, and if anybody else wants to speak on non-agendized items, please fill out one of these little forms and we'll be happy to listen to you. First speaker is Jim Gardner. If you could give us your name and city of residence.
Good evening. My name is Jim Gardner. I live in Lake Forest. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners and staff. The other day, I think the City Council made a mistake. Now, far be it from me to criticize the City Council or suggest that they've made a mistake. But a whole bunch of people, a mob as it were, showed up asking for a community garden, which I fully support. My name is Gardner, and it turns out my wife is a master gardener of all things. So we're fully in support of that, as I am in the dog park. And of course the mayor's been pushing the sports arena. Anyhow, the City Council, probably overwhelmed by the number of people who were there supporting the garden, community garden, threw it to the Parks and Recreation Committee. And I think that was probably a premature, this is the Whispering Hills vacant piece of land. I think that was probably a premature thing to do, because there's a prior question, which is, what's the best use of that land? And if that were a park, then by all means, it probably belongs in the Parks Commission. But that prior question, I'm not sure that was answered. Anyhow, I bring it up to you guys with the admonition that City Council doesn't like to be told they did the wrong thing. On the other hand, if somehow you could get that back from the Parks and Recreation Commission, I think it belongs here before it belongs there, although ultimately, surely if it goes there, that would be great. When I was thinking about that, that got me thinking about the last couple months. And in the last couple months, I think here you've done about an hour's worth of planning and about 20 or 30 hours worth of doing, which for a planning commission, it's not the doing commission, it's the planning commission. It seems as if planning's been short-shifted. I'm going to suggest that you throw in an extra meeting. You guys have got a full schedule. I think you do a fine job. I can't believe how patient you are with the people who come up here, myself included. That being said, there's not a lot of planning getting done, and yet there's a lot of planning issues ahead for us. There's traffic, there's land use, there's traffic, there's parking, there's traffic, there's, at least things that need to go ahead. And with the very ambitious schedule that you have, and all these meetings are filled with stuff that has to be attended to, and developers putting pressure, they want things done, et cetera, et cetera. It looks like planning's given a short shift. Somewhere along the line you might think about throwing in an extra meeting there. I know you're working and you're all volunteers and et cetera, et cetera. That may be hard to do. On the other hand, it is planning, and the long-term benefit to the city is, I think, with more planning, maybe a little bit less doing. It's a funny thing for me to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I will ask staff. I think Mr. Gardner brought up a good point, and I'm not sure what the history is behind that plot of land. I think it was designated originally as a park, but maybe if you could just look at it and see if it is something that we should look at in our group.
We could provide any report that was provided to the Park and Rec Commission of the history of the site, and I'm sure they provided a full background report on it. In terms of the commission taking any action or studying it or doing something, we would look to the city council to direct the commission to undertake something. So typically what we do is when we get together with our joint meeting with the Planning Commission, the Park and Rec Commission, and the city council, we have the opportunity.
Anybody else like to speak to us tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on, and that would take us to presentation items, and the first would be code enforcement.
Good evening, members of the Commission. Thank you for having me. Tonight I'm going to provide a brief second quarter code enforcement activity report. This covers the period commencing April 1st and ending June 30th of this year. During the second quarter, we added 211 new cases to the 164 cases carried over from the first quarter, and we closed 268 cases during the same period. This left us with a carryover of 107 active cases going into the third quarter. Attached to my report, as you've seen in previous reports, are several graphics, in this case a chart and 3 maps, which depict various aspects of Code Enforcement Division activity for the second quarter. Code enforcement staff utilizes these graphics to continually assess our level of activity throughout the city, and that helps us to effectively respond to the needs of the community and anticipate where best to devote resources. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this report or about any of the graphics at this time. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions this evening?
I do.
Okay, we have one over here.
At the last quarterly report, you had mentioned the work that you'd been doing with, I think it's Countrywide, as far as the wall.
Yes, sir.
And how you didn't have an association to hold accountable, basically, for maintenance, and you had to piece together. I'm just curious if anything similar is going on along Cherry. I can't remember the name of the development. It's not... I don't think it's the Bennett Ranch side, it's the other side, but I could be wrong. Bennett Ranch might overlap on both sides there. But as you're going down Cherry from Trabuco towards Geronimo, there's a series of homes with very dilapidated fences. I jog past there all the time, and I was just curious if we had something similar in the works along there.
As a focus area, not at this time. That was how we approached Countryside, the entire perimeter, 99 properties, as a focused enforcement area. We may have individual cases occurring there. They would occur on a complaint basis or proactively if the situation were necessary to rectify some sort of a safety hazard. But I'm certainly willing to look at the area as a whole and recommend it to my director for consideration as a focus area in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, you got off easy tonight. Thank you very much. That takes us to our second presentation by Public Works. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost missed that one. It's great to have these guys keep me in track here. All right, so we do have a comment. Someone would like to comment on code enforcement. We have Jim Gardner again. Once again, state your name and city of residence for the record.
Good evening, Jim Gardner again, and I try to keep myself to 2, so this is my last one, so relax. First of all, wearing my hat of the Board of Directors in Lake Forest 1, every so often we call on code enforcement, have nothing but good things to say about how cooperative and how they help us out when on those rare occasions that we have need. So, great. Thank you, and thank the city. The report, however, to me is half a report. I used to have a company, and we used to say we turn data into intelligence. And that was, we charged a boatload of money to people to do that. This is data. I'd like intelligence. I'd like not merely unidimensional treatment of it, but I'd like multidimensional treatment of it. I'd like not merely results, but I'd like implications. I'd like to know, for example, I'm using the royal eye, I mean the city, you guys, all of us would like to know. Are there geographic areas here that require special attention? Why? And what's the best way to address those areas? What are the long-term trends in the selected variables? Why? And where are those variables? What do they mean? What happens if those long-term trends continue? What are the cost implications of that? What are the quality of life implications of that? What can we do about those things? Public education can be approached through public education. Is Neighborhood Watch, capable of dealing with those things? Could we be working through the HOAs, et cetera, et cetera? So this is terrific. I mean, it's no question about it. That's a good job. It's extremely well presented. In my mind, the way I'm used to working, that would be stage one now. Now you take that data and you turn it into intelligence, and you use that to have programs that then better the city as a whole. So great job on the data. Let's do something with the data now that turns it into intelligence. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for this, which is an excellent job, and for all the cooperation we get from the homeowner association with code enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the applicant, or for the speaker.
Okay. We just remind you, though, normally we would take no action on items that are commented on.
Sure.
We're not required to. As a matter of fact, we're actually asked not to. But
Right.
to ask a question, I would say that's probably not an issue. So
Okay.
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, are you apply for the open seat on the Planning Commission?
No, I'm having too much fun doing what I'm doing. And also, which is, if I may compliment you guys, when I completed my doctorate and I was applying for jobs, my professor wrote that I didn't suffer fools easily. And I'm afraid I still have that adolescent trend. And you guys are terrific. But so often the people who come before here, I would get angry, I would do things to embarrass the city. I just couldn't do it. And you guys always impress me with how well, no matter how stupid the comments may be, they're not, but in some of the things people say, you guys are terrific in the way you treat the public. I really take my hat off to you, and I don't think I could be as well behaved as you guys did.
Thank you. Okay, now that takes us to Public Works.
Good evening, members of the Commission. This is the quarterly update for the Public Works from April 1st to June 30th. I want to highlight a few projects that may be of interest to the Commission. There are several projects that are currently under construction or will be beginning construction in the next few weeks. Those projects are the annual slurry seal project, which started on July 17th for the residential areas of Portola Hills and the commercial areas of Foothill Ranch. The commercial areas are being slurred at low traffic times during the night, and the residential areas are slurring during the day hours. Construction is anticipated to be complete in mid-September. The annual resurfacing project on Lake Forest Drive and Rockfield Drive will be beginning on Monday, July 29th, and this is for applying a rubberized asphalt pavement on Lake Forest Drive between Dimension and Rancho Parkway, and on Rockfield Boulevard between Lake Forest Drive and El Toro Road. The ADA Access Ramp Phase 6 project will construct ramps in the area bounded by Pittsford, El Toro Road, Northcrest, and Normandale, and will be starting on July 29th and is anticipated to be complete mid-September. The park improvements for Rimgate Park and Tamarisk Park, which include new restroom buildings, shade structures, play equipment, and improvements to the existing fields, as well as landscape and irrigation, will be beginning in August, and with an anticipated completion date of January 2014. The sports park masquerading and drainage construction is almost complete. The issuance of a notice of completion for the masquerading is scheduled for the August 20th council meeting. And this concludes my update, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Verpine.
This is not a question, this is a comment, and I think it would apply to your department. It's regarding landscape maintenance on the Tribuco Streetscape project, right at the, where there's a maintenance easement right at the entrance of Tree Line into the Citrus Lane track. And with regard to the daylilies, agapanthus, the agapanthus that are out there, there was a crew out there earlier this week, and there's a lot of, let's call them expired flowering stalks, for a better description, and they didn't cut them off. They just kind of looked like, okay, now what? They're devoid of any flowering at all, and they're just kind of hanging out there. And I'm kind of curious as to, why weren't those things just cut off and that area, kept pristine? So just FYI.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Okay, so now we are at the consent calendar. And does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll jump up. Actually, I'll just sit here and I'll just make a motion. How's that? I'll move for approval.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments about this? No? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So carries. That takes us to the public hearing. And we'll go site development permit.
Yes, we have two public hearings tonight. The first one is site development permit for the development of 430 multifamily units in the Shea Baker Ranch area. Carrie Ty has a staff report this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. As Director Ackerman mentioned, tonight we do have a proposal by Avalon Bay Communities to construct a 430-unit apartment development in the Shea Baker Ranch Community Planning Area 1A. And just generally, the location of Planning Area 1A is toward the north portion of that development. So this site is located along Alton Parkway and will also have frontage along the future extension of Rancho Parkway South. The site backs up to State Route 241, which is the toll road. And then there will be two access points to the site. The first will be from Alton Parkway, not right at the corner, but there will be a shared drive with the future commercial site, which will be right at the corner of Rancho Parkway South and Alton. So one access point comes from there, and the other one will be a private entry drive from Rancho Parkway South, the future extension. And they're building that right now. And the two access points will circulate sort of in an L shape through as a spine street through the middle of the development. The site is approximately 15 acres, and the proposed development consists, like I mentioned, of 430 units. The breakdown is 185 one-bedroom, 224 two-bedroom, and 21 three-bedroom units. And to give you a sense of the size of the units, I mean, these are typical apartment developments in the region. One-bedroom units are around 600 to 700 square feet. The two-bedroom units are around 1,000 to 1,100 square feet. And then the 21, there's relatively few three-bedroom units in this development, and they're going to be around 1,500 square feet. They're more townhome style. The types of units will be intermixed into buildings, and there's 37 three-story buildings on this approximately 15-acre site. The buildings are laid out in a manner that allows for parking areas as well as landscape walkways to be interspersed between and behind the buildings, and that provides for effective pedestrian circulation, connections from the parking spaces to the units as well as between the buildings. The proposed architectural style is American Heritage, and that's featured in the packet that you received, and that generally has wood siding, stucco, wood guardrails, and trim, but really words don't do it justice. I mean, the elevations really speak for themselves, and they've been provided in your packet. And there's significant use of building plane movement and colors also to add architectural definition, as well as, like I mentioned, movement. The architectural style is consistent with the California Eclectic Architectural Family, which is found as one of the styles in the Shea Baker Ranch Area Plan. Moving back to the site plan, based on the city's parking code requirement, the site requires 701 parking spaces, 86 of which are required for guest parking. The development proposes 804 spaces, and so there's a few extra there. The buildings integrate single-car garages on the ground floor, and each unit will be assigned a single-car garage. And then based on the parking management plan, additional occupants on the lease for each unit may have an additional parking permit, if you will, that allows them to park on site. And I should mention the parking management plan does require that all vehicles parked on site, whether they are resident or guest, have a parking permit. And Avalon Bay actually operates a website solely dedicated toward temporary parking permits, and each resident is limited to a certain number each month. Of the 804 spaces, the required 86 guest spaces will be kept for that purpose, and so they won't be assigned out for other uses. As described extensively in the staff report, the development includes a variety of amenities for the residents that live on site, and they're intended to evoke a resort-style living, if you will. There's a centrally located clubhouse, and residents can lease that for events. There's pool, spa, shade cabanas, dining and entertainment terraces, and there's even a small little dog park area inside the complex for the residents. And there's also several open space areas interspersed around the site in addition to the centrally located complex, and those have again dining terraces, and there's a rock garden in one of them, so there's a little bit of variety, but they're spread out to make access easy. The proposed project generally markets to their target demographic, which are renters by choice and those seeking resort living style families, homes. The variety of floor plans, the staff report mentions there's about 8 or 9 of them, and the amenities as well as the provided parking complies with the city's code, and the parking management plan will make sure that that functions effectively. The project is also compliant with the guidelines of the Shea Baker Area Plan. And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution approving this project. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions you have. The applicant's representative, Mark Yanda, is also in the audience and is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Not at this time? Okay. Well, let's open a public hearing. And Mark Yanda, would you like to come up and address us? And you're with the applicant.
That's right. Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners, my name is Mark Yanda with Avalon Bay Communities, and I am the applicant. I'd first off like to thank staff, and in particular Carrie, for working with us throughout the initial screen check process. It's been very productive and helpful for us in getting a project that I think we're all proud of. So just to give you a brief introduction to Avalon Bay, I don't know how familiar you are with the company, but Avalon Bay is a publicly traded real estate investment trust, and we operate primarily on the East Coast and West Coast metro markets. So on the West Coast, we're in Seattle and San Francisco markets, in Southern California. In Southern California, we have a total of nearly 20,000 apartments. 19 of those are in Orange County, and 2 of which are in Lake Forest. And the 2 projects that we own in Lake Forest, one is called Eves Lake Forest, and the other is Eves Los Alisos. Those are both existing properties that we purchased. So this will be our first development property in Lake Forest, and we're looking forward to adding a truly kind of Class A community to our portfolio in Lake Forest. The project itself, I'll keep my comments brief because I think Carrie did a great job kind of describing it, as well as her staff report. But as she said, our primary target market are renters by choice. They're people who choose the rental lifestyle, and they're attracted to that, as well as the amenities that we provide in our community. Kind of one of the things that we strive for in our new communities is to create a strong sense of community amongst the people who live there. So one of the kind of design elements that we've included in the project is this strong main street that I think you'll see running through the project, and that's intended to be kind of the focal point of circulation, both at a pedestrian level and vehicular level, and it, connect to the future retail site that's at the corner of the site. So in doing that, we we'll kind of bring people together, along with our amenities that Carrie was describing. And we have a resort-style pool with a clubhouse and fitness facility that's at the center of the project. And in addition to that, we have several what we call backyard areas in the community that will have barbecues and picnic tables and things for people to come together and kind of meet their neighbors and get to know each other and so forth. So we think those are important parts of the overall community. I think that's pretty well all I really had to say. I'm available for any questions you might have. So just open to that.
Okay, let me see if we have any questions. Any questions of the applicant? Yes, we have one. Commissioner Hamilton.
All right, sorry about that. So I see the commercial property right there on the corner of Alton and Rancho, like you just mentioned.
Right.
I was wondering if you're planning any direct access from the non-freeway side of A Street that would go that abuts directly to the commercial, would there be any access between that property and the commercial?
There is. So there's the A Street that I think you're talking about that enters our project off of Alton. There's also a drive that, I don't know if you can tell in the drawings, but you come, if you're turning onto the site from Alton, to your right, you'll be able to make a right onto the commercial site. So we've been coordinating with Shea on that, making sure that we have the right truck turning radiuses and things like that to accommodate the future commercial site.
Yeah, I guess I should have asked more like a walkability directly
Yes.
from the property, not having someone have to get into their car and then go around a big fence
Absolutely.
and get back into it.
Yeah, that's one of the important kind of aspects of our site design is we feel is creating a strong walkable neighborhood and having sidewalks that connect not only through our site but also to adjacent sites. And the sidewalks that go down this main street will in fact end up in the retail center when it's built.
But maybe not a direct access from, say, one of the units up against Rancho.
Right. Yeah, there's a grade separation there that kind of precludes that from happening directly.
But yeah, they can go either, if they can get out on Rancho or the other sidewalks to get, to walk to that. But there's not going to be necessarily a direct access. Does that make sense?
Not along the back side of the commercial center. Is that kind of what you're referring to? Yeah. So there's no direct access there. It's primarily on the center, the A Street.
The A Street. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got some, and thank you for being here. Thank you for what I think is a really good project.
Thanks.
I think that'll work really well. I do have a couple of concerns. One, you talk about your parking management arrangements. The two projects that you have purchased that were projects already in our city, do you have parking management in place there now, and how's that working out for you? I'm concerned that one assigned space, and then the number, while your numbers are higher than what we have required, you probably are aware that parking is a very hot spot for us.
Right.
We want to make sure that we have enough. So if you can just kind of fill it, at least for my satisfaction, just to understand what you're talking about in a parking management program and looking at, and again, I don't know what your target, from what you said, your target client is probably not going to have multiple kids in their units. It's probably, more 1 and 2 people, so that would probably work out, I'm guessing. But you do have a mix of various products where you could have more than 2 people in there, and they could each have their own vehicle. So I'm just trying to figure out how can we work with that.
Okay. Well, a couple things. First off, our parking ratio for this project is 1.87 stalls per unit. The parking ratios, I forget the precise numbers, but for the existing communities are in the 1.5 to 1.6 ratio. So if you spread that over 430 units, it's a significantly more number of stalls overall. So we think that will help alleviate possibly some of the issues that are on some of the older communities here in Lake Forest. In addition to that, we do have a parking management plan. Virtually all of our communities have a similar parking management plan. And basically, the way it works is, as Carrie said, you get one garage that's assigned to your unit. But in addition to that, for each car that you have registered to a resident of that apartment, you get basically a parking permit for that car. And you're limited based on the number of drivers in each unit. And I think we've capped that. By memory, Carrie, is it to 2? Yeah, per apartment. And so we feel like we have enough stalls there to accommodate that. And as far as parking goes, we do issue daily permits for guest parking, people who will be there overnight. Each apartment is limited to 12 overnight guests per month. So we won't have a glut of people. We won't have people asking for guest stalls for people who actually live in the apartment. So we kind of control it that way. And as Carrie mentioned, we do have a website that's dedicated solely to managing guest parking, and then we also patrol on a regular basis to ensure that those stalls are being occupied by people who have been registered as guests or are permanent residents.
Okay. So then each actual tenant can have a guest park for up to 12 times a month?
Right. So they could have 12 overnight guests a month.
Okay, with that kind of, I mean, I can see how those numbers could get large very quickly at 430 units. So now I'm looking for what are the typical numbers that for guest parking in your type of operations? Because I can imagine that not all 430 are going to have guests at the same time.
Right.
What kind of a number would we be looking at? Out of that 430, about how many might have a guest all at the same time?
On any given night? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you might expect anywhere from 5 to 10% maybe. So 20 to 40 overnight stalls possibly.
Okay, so your kind of your target number is somewhere in the 40 range,
Right.
And a maximum. And we're allotting for basically close to 2 parking per unit,
Right.
which would certainly exceed the number of spaces available, including the guest parking spaces, very quickly, if we had 2 per unit. Do you kind of see where I'm going? At 400,
No, I didn't follow that last
okay,
part.
well, at 430, and if you're allowing 2 per unit, now you're at 860, and we're only at 804 parking. If you allowed
I
actually
see what
2.
you're saying, but not
Yeah.
not every unit has 2.
Understand that. I'm just working on what's the maximum exposure, that's all.
Right.
And if we're looking at that, then we're, I'm trying to get realistic
Right.
numbers here.
Sure.
Because you guys are looking, you're going to be doing the enforcement. We aren't. You're going to be doing the enforcing, so that means that some people are going to have to be told you can't park here tonight.
That's right.
And that's your responsibility, that's not ours.
Right.
But if we undersize at this stage and then create a problem for you, then we didn't do our job in the planning side. That's all I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Well, it's in our best interest, too. I mean, as operators, and long-term owners of these communities, it's in our best interest to provide the right amount of parking as well.
Right.
And, we actually have a parking model that we use as part of our development process. It's based on, we own 270 communities nationwide. So it's based on our operational experience at all of these communities, and it rolls into a parking model that takes many things into account, including the unit mix, the location, the city that it's in, its proximity to transportation, the number of garages, are they direct access or not. It takes kind of all these factors into consideration, and so what we came up with, the 804 number, is kind of the product of that experience over the long term, and it's something that we know works, and we're comfortable with the long term.
Well, you guys are going to own it. We're not.
Sure.
And the management of it belongs to you, and I'm sure it'll get done correctly. All right. Then I do have another question. It's on C5, and I don't know, maybe actually this might end up going back to Carrie, but I'm looking at the MSE wall in section EE, and it looks like, from where every place I can look, like there's nothing at that base of the wall to be able to plant any landscape material, so I'm trying to figure out what is sitting right there, and I can't conceptually get my head around that.
I think we do have a flat space at the base of the wall to allow planting along the base of the wall. In addition, we've configured the wall in a way that we have planting pockets in the wall, so that
Right.
we'll be able to plant the wall basically, and over time it will green up.
Oh, yeah, we've got some of those in the city, and they work
Right.
out really well. But typically, we have some space at the bottom where there's material planted at the base, and I don't see it in this area, so I'm trying to figure out just exactly where this is and what it's going to end up looking like.
Right, yeah, so if you look at the site plan, that landscape plan, you can see a row of trees that are planted along the base of the Verdura wall.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Okay, well, I can see there's trees
Yeah.
right there, but it looks like there's also 2 different walls. There's this wall, and then there's a metal wall, a metal
It's a metal fence.
Metal
Yeah,
fence?
yeah. like a picket type.
Right. So how are those two coming together there?
The fence is at the top of the slope,
Okay.
and then the Vidura wall then extends down from the top of the slope.
Okay. Okay, I think you got it.
If I could elaborate one more part, there's the flat area at the bottom is, it's planted, and that cars park head in on there, so part of that is like where the cars overhang as well. And that's the low-growth landscaping there.
Okay.
Commissioner Hamilton?
I had one more question, too. The wall along the 241, I'm not sure if I could find that in the materials.
Yeah, it's a slump stone wall.
Okay. What's the height of it?
It ranges, from 6 to 10 feet. It's based on the sound report.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Brower?
Actually, I'm satisfied with the questions that have been asked, but and the answers that have been given, both in staff report and in your candid answers. I appreciate it. I'm just curious, because we're constantly struggling in my condo association with parking and managing our guest lots. Could you give staff your website so I can take a look at how that works?
Sure.
Just looking for a new model, and that sounds intriguing.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, and just to, we have actually seen the website. I believe it's Avalon Bay Parking, right? AvalonBayParking.com if you want to take a look at it. But yeah, we've gone through it.
Okay, I had a couple quick questions. Also, I think it looks like a very nice project.
Thank you.
The MSC wall, I didn't see the standard wall. I didn't see how high that was.
It's 11 feet
Is-
at the highest. It's
Okay,
11.
so that is the one that's going to be closest to the freeway, to the toll road. Is that true? Okay. That's where I was confused as to where that
Yeah,
was
go
at.
The entry road along, if you pretend like you're on Rancho Parkway South once it's built, and you pull into the entry road, and Avalon Bay is going to be toward your left. Future Meadows on the right, but I'll talk about that in the next item. The wall is below this. It comes off the street this way, so you won't actually see it from the street because the site is lower than where Rancho Parkway South and the entry street will be. So it's below the street.
Okay. So is there a slope down to it? Planted slope?
Yeah, it goes a sidewalk, and then there's a slope, and then there's the wall, and then there's the flat area, and then there's the parking, in that order, from the top to the bottom.
Okay.
Does that help?
So the reason I'm asking that question is because retaining walls are a big thing for us. And
Sure.
we don't like them over 6 feet, so
Right.
we always have to ask about them. And the real key for us is the visibility from the surrounding areas.
Right.
So from what it sounds like is that this one, if you're walking down the sidewalk, you're not going to see the wall at all. You're going to be looking down.
If you're on Rancho?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be downslope from you, so you wouldn't see it, and it'll also be shielded by the buildings that abut Rancho.
So you will see it from your own project.
Right, from the parking area inside the project.
And then on the retaining wall, the slumpstone wall that's adjacent to the toll road, tell me a little bit about that and why it's 10 feet.
Yeah, it was based on the mitigation requirements from the EIR that was done when the overall Baker Ranch was approved. And we're just
So
we're
we
just
already
following them.
approved that slumpstone wall at 10 feet in the previous plans?
Sort of. Let me. The EIR, the Environmental Impact Report for the entire Shea Baker community included sound attenuation measures, and it pertains to the frontage along the State Route 241. It also pertains to areas along Alton Parkway and Bake Parkway, etc. So anywhere where there's a major arterial. And it required a 10-foot solid wall. And in this case, slumpstone was one of the wall materials that's in the Baker Ranch area plan approved for the whole community. And slumpstone is solid, and therefore it was a chosen choice, if you will. But, I mean, solid could also be glass, for example, which if there's a view lot or something, you would choose to use that. But in the end, a 10-foot wall was required for sound attenuation, and they chose slumpstone in accordance with the area plan.
And then, so then, is there anything to soften that wall up? Any planting on it or around it?
There is. All along the perimeter, we have planting on our, basically on the wall is on the property line essentially. So that there's landscaping on the project side of the wall, trees and shrubbery.
And nothing on the other side?
Right.
And how far away from it is from a toll road, and is it a straight shot, or is it sloped down or up?
The site's actually downslope from the toll road.
Okay, so toll road's above it.
Toll road is above it. Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
Toll road slopes down, and then the
Site.
retaining wall's down
Right.
there. Okay. All right. I think that answers all my questions. Thank you. Anybody else have any more that you've thought of? All right. Thank you very much. If we come up with more, we'll bring you back up.
Okay.
So we'll start off our discussion here. Anybody like to start? Mr. Verplank?
I like the project. I think the architectural is good. I had some questions about the total height of some of the peaks of the rooftops, but I think we're okay. Being set down, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I'm going to like to see it when it's done. If I could convince my wife that we should just sell and rent, that would be great. The next thing would be a motorhome, but I don't think I'm going to get her into that. I welcome your project. Yeah.
Commissioner Hamilton?
I too think this is a great project. I think it's going to be an addition to the city, assuming, obviously, depending on the vote. You have my vote. Thank you for coming to the city and developing new for the first time. I think this is important. My only, I don't want to make it a condition, but I think some of this interior flow is something that just, the walkability, and someone kind of even like in building 33, 34, 36, trying to get to the commercial track, by foot. It does look like it's level right at 34, but it looks like they'd have to go up stairs if it was kind of closer to building 29, if there were even stairs. Or it looks like they would go down if they would go from 36 to the building 36 to the commercial area. But it just, I just would like to just throw out if you would consider maybe a stair or something like that to give someone access that's kind of in that side. Someone like over in 19 and 13, there's pretty much a clear path for them walking. They either drive or walk. I don't see that kind of issue necessarily anywhere else. But I just thought 36, 33, 34, they'd have a hard time getting they'd have to walk a long way to A and then, kind of come back. So I don't know if it would even, you're the developer, so maybe the access would be the Rancho. It just is an idea. I don't want to make it a condition, but I just thought that would be something that could maybe enhance the walkability.
I think that's a really good comment, and actually the grades right there between buildings 36 and 34 are pretty close to zeroing out with the sidewalk on Rancho, so we could easily put a pedestrian connection there.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think it's great, and I'm really excited now. I was before.
Commissioner Brower? Okay. Yeah, I'll just say that too. I think it's a very good project. Whatever you can do to soften the look of the retaining walls, the MSC wall will probably look just fine with it planted the way it is. I know you're going to have trees and everything along that other wall, and I'm reasonably sure there's nothing you can do on the other side of the wall. And we're pretty used to seeing walls from freeways, so I don't think that's an issue. So overall, I like the looks of it. I'm with Commissioner Verplank. I'm at that. If I didn't have a house already, I think I would seriously consider it. It looks pretty nice. So, yeah. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll go ahead and move that we approve site development permit 5-13-3320 and close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes.
Welcome.
Thank you and good luck. We're excited to see your new project. All right, that takes us to our next site development.
Yes, our next item is a site development permit for an affordable multifamily development with 189 units, also in the Shea Baker Ranch development. And this is Carrie tonight, so she's back with another report.
Thank you. Oh, waiting for dust to settle. No, you're fine. Okay. As I had previously mentioned briefly, if you caught it, this project site next door to the Avalon Bay project. So the segue, I think, is very nice. And so this site also backs up to the State Route 241 toll road. This one is on that. If you're going up that, this one will only have one access. So going up the entry drive from Rancho Parkway South, instead of going left, you'd go right. This site is 6.3 acres and does propose 189 units. Of those, 187 will be affordable and 2 will be caretaker units. There will be 10 three-story buildings laid out in a site plan that's similar to the site plan you just saw. So you've got parking areas interspersed, as well as open space areas, and then a centrally located complex for amenities. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. And just a little bit of background, the Shea Baker Ranch project or community had a development agreement, and in that development agreement had an affordability requirement that could be satisfied in several ways. That included dedication of just a site to the city for affordable housing to be built, or it included on-site construction of an affordable housing project to comply with a certain point system, and you are given certain numbers of points for types of units, for the demographic that you serve, whether it's the very low income bracket or the low income bracket, and that's detailed in your staff report. And what we have here is Shea Baker Ranch Associates and Meta Housing have partnered, and Meta Housing has submitted this proposal, which would satisfy the affordability requirement in the development agreement. The project includes affordable units that are intended to serve households in 2 categories, and like I mentioned, the low and the very low. And the income levels are in your staff report, but just to give you a sense, for a household of 4, very low is defined as having an annual household income of less than $43,600. And the rents are they're tiered differently for the income categories as well. The proposed project will have 57 one-bedroom units, 75 two-bedroom units, and 57 three-bedroom units. The square footages range for the one-bedrooms up to 700 square feet, the two-bedrooms up to 900 square feet, and the three-bedrooms up to 1,150 square feet. And like I mentioned, they'll be intermixed, different types of units in the same building. There'll be 10 buildings. This project proposes architectural style that comes from the Spanish architectural style family in the Shea Baker Ranch area plan. There will be 2 complementary styles, the Spanish Colonial Revival and the California Monterey architecture. These types of architecture feature exterior stucco, earth tone colors that will be a little bit different to add some interest, wood shutters, decorative wrought iron, and defined entries. And generally they have varied building planes, vertically oriented openings like doors and fenestration, and overall do comply with the Shea Baker Ranch architectural design guidelines. The city's parking code for this project requires 300 parking spaces, and for affordable projects, there is also a state government code requirement that actually limits the number of parking spaces the jurisdictions can require. Based on that requirement, the project would require 321 spaces. But the project does propose, over that, a total of 331 spaces, 189 of which will be in single-car garages, and there will be 142 open spaces that, again, similar to the other project you saw, there's a certain portion, 38 of them will be reserved for guest parking spaces, and then the other ones will be assigned to the units depending on the number of occupants. This project also has a parking management plan, and that requires that all cars parked on site have parking permits. The parking management plan specifically includes that guest parking spaces remain available. So moving to amenities, because I know everybody likes those. The site amenities include a centrally located recreation complex that does have a swimming pool and spa, outdoor fireplace, barbecue, and that's located generally where the leasing building is, so right when you come down that central drive for the project. There's also open spaces between of the buildings. There's toward the back part of the project, there's an open space area that actually includes a community garden. And toward the front part, below Rancho Parkway there's a tot lot and a central laundry building there that kind of creates a synergy where parents can do the laundry, watch the kids at the same time, and talk to each other. So overall, this proposed project satisfies the required affordability requirement, and it uses quality architecture, provides resident amenities, exceeds the city's parking requirements, and also has a parking management plan that ensures that the parking usage will be effective. Overall, the project complies with the city's code and the Shapeacre area plan, and with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving this project. This concludes my presentation, and I again can address any questions you have. The applicant representative, Sean Bradley, is and his project team are in the audience and also available for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, we'll move right along. Let's open a public hearing, and we'll bring up Sean. If you could state your name again and city of residence for the record.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission, staff. I am Sean Bradley. I actually live in Long Beach, California, but most recently reside in Tustin, and that was an interesting experience because that was my most recent development, in which was very similar to this, working in a master plan community with the master developers of Lennar and Lyon, and somewhat of a challenge because we were working backwards in the development process, taking over a broken condo project. So being on the forefront at the beginning of this one, I think, is a much easier path to success. With that being said, I can introduce Meta Housing a little bit more for your understanding if you haven't done any homework on your own. We work exclusively in the affordable housing space, providing solutions to many communities throughout California. We have about 40 projects in our portfolio, representing close to 4,200 units. So clearly not on the scale of a publicly traded REIT, but definitely welcome the opportunity to work together and integrate our development harmoniously as we can. If you've taken the time to look through, you'll see that a lot of times people don't always understand affordable housing, but you're really serving the residents of the community, not only in Lake Forest, but in the surrounding area, and to give them the opportunity to live in a quality development that isn't just a box, to check your numbers. We really, we take pride in the quality of architecture and the amenity package, and really the quality living experience that we provide for our residents. And that's what we're really looking to do here in the community of Lake Forest.
Good. Thank you. Let's see if you have any questions for the applicant. Anybody have questions? I have one for you. You plan, once you get them built, you manage them as well then? Continue to manage them?
We bring on third-party management. All of our properties are third-party managed.
You retain ownership, though?
We retain ownership.
Okay, so you have a vested interest in making sure that...
Very much so. We are going to utilize the sale of tax credits, which bring in the equity to the project, and that's done at an institutional level, so we are actually beholden to those tax credit investors for 15 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just out of curiosity, you're pretty well locked in for 15 years. And,
right.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. We like vested interest in our area, and we're looking forward to this. No questions for the applicant. Okay. Commissioner Hamilton.
If the tax code were to ever change, would that affect the viability of this project, or is it the tax code as of the development?
Correct. Okay. It's basically what they determine as hold harmless period.
Okay.
So anything that happens after the fact, you're basically grandfathered.
Okay. Thank you.
And I did have a question on the tandem parking. Can you explain that to me?
That was just a solution that our design team came up with relative to some of the constraints of the site and the parking that we are looking to provide on site as well.
So did it just give you 5 more spaces, or was there some other reasoning behind it? Because of the location, or?
It was just really achieving a higher yield on site as it relates to parking.
Have you had experience with tandem parking like that before?
On other sites in our portfolio, yes, and then me personally, I have as well. Lived in.
How does it work?
It's a little bit of a nuisance when you're moving your wife's car to get your car out to take off in the morning, but it's doable.
Normally, we had another project come up, and we had some issues with tandem parking in a garage. But because you have in excess of the minimum number of spaces, even if I were to take those away, you still exceed the minimum number. So I'm happy to see that. And I also don't think that the tandem parking is much as a problem outside as it is in a double-car garage, particularly since you can't see what's in the garage most of the time. So I don't think it'll be an issue for you. Like you say, maybe not everybody's going to want to rent those units, but those who do will make do with it.
We're just to set the expectation. When we start construction, about 4 months into construction, we'll start marketing the property for lease, and we anticipate having a waiting list when we open the doors, just because of where the economics fall out and the units available and what those rents are. It's going to be a first come, first served basis. So someone's going to end up with them, and if the opportunity down the road, avails itself for them to change units, they can certainly do that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else who wants to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it up here and start the discussion. Let's start on this side this time. Commissioner Brower.
Just in general, I like what I see. It looked fairly similar to the one that we went and toured. So, to those on staff who set up that tour, kudos on pretty much nailing what we were looking at. Otherwise, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilton.
Yeah, again, I think, thank you for coming before us. I think this is going to be a really attractive project, assuming, the vote goes your way. You have my vote, and I've been thumbing through. I saw a picture, and I can't seem to find it. So I was just going to say, I think it's either on page AA6, which is our page 183, or I'm trying to find the rear. Maybe that one would do. On page 189, DB6? No. Yes. Maybe. Whatever those pages are. If you kind of look at the rear elevation, it does have some nuances on it. I just, again, not a condition, but I really like that, I don't know, for better term, difference in, it's almost like a planned crack, if you know what I'm saying. And so I don't know if there was any way to just, again, a thought, I don't want to make it as a condition, but just kind of maybe put another one in there just to kind of give it a little bit more, it's an idea. That's just all I had, really, but I love it. I think it's great, and assuming things go your way, welcome to the city.
Commissioner Verplank.
Okay, I'm going to echo Commissioner Brower's comment that this is, obviously staff had timed very well our visit to the project over in Irvine, because it really did help us to get the concept down as to what these projects should look like. So, and I took a look at this project and I thought, holy cow, this looks like we just did this 2 weeks ago, except reversed in that aspect. So I think that, as Commissioner Hamilton said, welcome to the city. I'm all for this.
Okay. I think Commissioner Hamilton brought up a good point. I think he was talking about articulation of the buildings, and there's a couple of fascias that Well, they're somewhat hard to see in the pictures because I know there's some articulation there because I can see the shading, but, they tend to look kind of flat on the picture. In those areas where you can add some articulation easily with, like you said, a line or more shutters or, a window box or something, I think that would just make the whole project more attractive. So I agree with that, but I wouldn't want to make it a condition either. So just a suggestion. Commissioner Hamilton?
Are you ready for a motion?
You bet.
All right. First, I'd like to recommend closing the public hearing and adopt staff's recommended resolution of the Planning Commission approving site development permit 3-13-3224.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, so it passes. Great, gentlemen. Good luck. Build it quick, and they will come, right? Okay. Moving right along. I think we're actually going to get done fairly quick tonight. So we're at the director's comments.
Just a few comments. Thank you for persevering through these huge agendas and large deliveries. We should be hitting smooth sailing from this point on, but as we had said several months ago, we had a lot of projects coming through, a lot of the Shea Baker projects. Obviously, these two are also within the Shea Baker. So a lot of work. It's been a very busy summer for us. Just to bring you up to speed on a couple of things, on the 16th of July, the City Council heard an appeal of the Planning Commission's PCN determination for the Foothill Auto Spa. Coming up next week on July 30th, it's a special meeting for the City Council to consider the Brookfield project, which was also heard by the Planning Commission. Two other appeals to let you know about. On August the 6th, the U-Haul project was appealed to the City Council, and there will be a hearing on that. And we've also received an appeal for the most recent PCN action taken by the Planning Commission, and that was for a specialty liquor store deli market on Muirlands. So I don't have a date for that. We do know, though, that on September 3rd, the City Council will be holding interviews for the vacancy we have on the Planning Commission. So we've got still a busy schedule for the end of the summer, and that concludes our comments.
Okay. Commissioner Hamilton has a question, and then I have one as well. Go ahead. We all have questions.
Okay, I was going to start. Is there a published party who makes the appeal for the items that you just discussed, or is that?
Yes, an appeal has to be made in writing to the city clerk, and so when we write the appeal, they have to state their reasons. We usually include their letter. They have to fill out a form. They may or may not pay a fee, depending upon if they're a council member or a private citizen.
Do you have who appealed those items that you just discussed?
Not here in front of me.
Okay.
But we could certainly forward. It's all public record. We could certainly forward that to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brower, you had a question? Okay. And I had a question. Actually, on the July 16th, that was the one with the auto wash appealed. What was the ruling there?
The PCN was approved by a vote of 3-2.
Okay. So they're allowing them to have the liquor license. Okay. Or at least doing the recommendation. I guess the ABC is still the control.
Right. Directed, same with yours, directed staff by minute action to send correspondence to the ABC. So it's in the ABC's hands.
Okay. Thank you. Where were we? Oh, our city attorney.
None tonight, Mr. Chairman, or Vice Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, where should we start? CJ, would you like to start off?
I don't actually have much to add tonight. My question regarding the appeals was already answered, and I guess just as a brief follow-up, I had asked at the last meeting about a consensus on agendizing a discussion of how we make a recommendation to City Council from our body as to how we deal with the PCNs. I'm just curious what the timeline on something like that would be. Had not been through before.
If I can address that, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, Ms. Ackerman earlier tonight actually addressed the process for raising issues to the council is actually the biannual joint meeting of the commissions and the council. And the next biannual meeting occurs, do you know when, Ms. Ackerman?
No, I don't have a date on that.
So during that meeting, the commission can raise issues like that and request that the council essentially deputize the commission to take a look at those issues or take them on themselves. So that is the venue for raising those types of issues.
That's it? Okay. Commissioner Hamilton.
No, I was just going to say, if we're deputized, do we get an extra title, like a deputy or something to that effect?
We will bring some
badges?
yellow paper badges that Ms. Ty will cut out for you. It'll be amazing.
You know, I too wanted to, on a serious note, thank staff for the field trip that we were able to undertake in Irvine. I think that definitely did help the flow of things tonight. I know two other commissioners mentioned that earlier, and I was saving that to the end. I guess I have a question too about agendizing. I take the public. Well, let's just say it's Mr. Gardner. I take Mr. Gardner's comments to heart about agendizing items and planning, and what's our, maybe this is the city attorney, do we need, I think the council recently had two, what's the process to request an item to be agendized, or do we just, what's the process?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's essentially the same answer that I gave to Mr. Brower's question, is the council has set a process where twice a year the Planning Commission, Parks and Recs Commission, and Council meet jointly and essentially set the agenda for the commissions for the coming 6 months. So the best practice is to essentially make a list individually of those issues, whether it's parking, traffic, etc., PCNs, that you feel need to be addressed either by the council or by the commission, and then at that joint meeting raise those with the council. They can then essentially set the workload for the coming 6 months.
All right. Maybe I just had a deja vu moment there, but thank you for that.
Okay, Commissioner Verplank.
Tonight, I have no comments.
Hey, thank you. I have a couple of things I wanted to mention, and I'll start with the one regarding the Planning Commission planning. I just thought some history might be in order. When I first started on this Planning Commission 12 years ago, I felt that we were in a purely reactive mode. And when some plan came before us, we dealt with it, but I didn't feel like we were doing a lot of planning. However, over the years, I think we've been able to change that process, and we have done a lot of planning. Some examples would be the retaining wall guidelines, which was a relatively lengthy process. Staff went through and did a lot of work on it, brought in a consultant. They took us out on field trips. We had several discussions through public meetings before we came up with a final guideline that we're using today for all of our stuff. It was very well thought out. We also did which I fought for quite a few months. These things are little slow to move ahead sometimes, with design guidelines for the entire city, not just specific areas. And that was another area. I think we did bring that one up at one of the 6-month meetings, and we were able to get that put on the agenda. Staff did a great job of putting together some examples for us of existing architecture, and then we added to that architecture that we felt would be appropriate. I think we're currently working on a parking study. Is that true? So staff is working on parking right now, which will be the same kind of process, where once they get their initial research done, and they'll bring it to us, we'll talk about it, and we'll come up with some guidelines or changes, if we need be, to the code. So there's some planning going on. Maybe some of it's in the background that we don't always see, or at least the public doesn't always see. That's enough on that topic. I did want to bring up how nice it is to have Shea Baker and projects like that come before us. I went through these things in quite a bit of detail. I'm sure all the rest of you did too. And it's really hard to find too much to pick at. They've really done a good job. Staff has done a great job of guiding them and working them through it. And clearly, when we get a project here that has excess numbers of parking spaces, significantly in excess, it shows that there's some thought on their part about what they want to do and what kind of community they want to create. So some of the others where I and maybe some of my fellow commissioners have been a little more hard, it's because, I think sometimes we feel like they're trying to get away or scoot by at the very minimum in parking or with retaining walls or whatever it happens to be. And it's just really nice to have certain developers that come in here and aren't trying to scoot on the edge of the laws all the time. With that, you guys did a great job again tonight. Thank you very much, and I appreciate everything. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Oh, first, before I adjourn it, I need to tell you that I will not be at the next meeting. I am going to be on vacation, which is August 8th. And do you want to wait until that time to decide who's going to run the meeting, or would you like to plan ahead?
We can wait.
Okay. With that, then, I will close the meeting to the next regular scheduled meeting on August 8th.